we ended off the last session looking at a micrograph of the testis, a primary sex organ. So that is where sperm is produced, 300,000 per minute in a male's lifetime after puberty. And there are a couple of cells of interest that we learned about. So stentacular cells, they are the cells that create the blood-testis barrier. So why, you can write this in the chat, why must there be a blood-testis barrier? What is it in particular that needs to be separate from the sperm? Why is there a blood-testis barrier? Yeah, white blood cells, exactly, from our immune system. Yes, the interstitial cells, they produce testosterone. Interstitial cells, incidentally, used to be known as Leydig's cells, another name that's been changed from the original. So I'll tell you a quick story. So there's a lot of injuries that are related to work-related injuries. I just heard about one to note. You know what? There's one called the chimney sweep's scrotum. Oh, I don't know why that's an injury for chimney sweeps, but apparently it is. But this individual, a male, was having abdominal pains. And the reason he didn't know, I went to see his GP and figured out that his uh, testes were being pulled very high up into his abdomen by a particular muscle, known as the cremaster muscle. And the reason for that was because he worked in refrigeration. He fixed refrigeration units, the really large ones. And so in the cold, the cremaster muscle pulls the testes up into the body, close to the body, up into the abdomen region, like not into the abdomen, but close to the abdomen. And so he was experiencing pain. Yeah, it's particularly strong cremaster muscle, but not only that, I mean, he was in a job where he was in a very cold environment. So the treatment for that was to cut the cremaster muscle slightly so that it didn't pull the testes up as high into the body. So the name of that muscle is the cremaster muscle. The cremaster muscle. And it turns out to be strips of the internal abdominal oblique muscle. So strips of oblique muscles. Oblique muscles are the ones that are at an angle. They enmesh or surround the spermatic cord. The spermatic cord, which contains also the veins and arteries and nerves that supply the testes. So when it's cold, the cremaster contracts and draws the testes closer to the body. The spermatic cord. Yeah, so the scrotum holds both testes, but it is divided into two compartments. And also, if it's particularly warm, the cremaster muscle will relax more, so the testes drop more. So I'll just put vice versa. There's another muscle of interest, the importance of keeping the testes cool, the dartos muscle. That's a subcutaneous muscle of the scrotum. It contracts in cold weather. And the scrotum becomes wrinkled and taut or tighter. It both holds the testes closer to the body and reduces surface area of the scrotum. To prevent loss of heat. And there is another way in which the testes are kept cooler. Does sound a bit like a, yes, a Seinfeld episode. Oh, that was George. George had gone swimming in the cold pool and was caught. That's right. Yes, he had to explain himself. So another method whereby to keep the testes cooler is called the Pampiniform plexus. And that's a network of veins that surrounds the artery. The testicular artery. So as you can imagine, the artery is holding blood that's come from the body. So it's body temperature. The veins that are leaving the testes are cooler. And heat goes from a hot place to a colder place. So heat transfers from the arteries to the veins. And that's called countercurrent temperature transfer. And this occurs in the spermatic cord, which holds the artery, the veins, and the nerves. So without it, the blood would be too warm. So warm blood would inhibit sperm production. It seems odd that the sperm require a lower temperature to produce, but one of the reasons may be that enzymes function at very specific temperatures. An enzyme, which is a protein, which must be a particular shape in order to function. So the pampiniform works like a counter-current system. A counter-current heat exchange. So it removes heat from the descending arterial blood to about 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius cooler than core body temperature. scrotum itself is a pendulous swinging, that means swinging, pouch divided into two compartments. By a septum, a median septum. So let's take a look at this region. So here is the spermatic cord. Here it's been opened there so that you can see the cremaster muscle. That's this oblique muscle here. Here's the artery there in the center and the plexus that surrounds the artery, the Pampiniform plexus. Yeah. So the spermatic cord is surrounded by fascia. Which is, the fascia is connective tissue. So it's like loose connective tissue, but tight. So it's tightly packed. So there's the dartos muscle that we were just talking about, subcutaneous, the scrotal skin, the septum that divides the scrotum. Yeah, so here's heat exchange. So descending arterial flow and ascending venous flow. The system of transport for sperm is the male duct system. And the structures we'll look at are the ejaculatory duct, the ductus deferens, and the epididymis. The epididymis for storage, the ductus deferens for transport, and the ejaculatory duct for transport. So let's look at the path of sperm. That was too fast. Yes, I can go back to the writing. This writing? Okay, let me leave that up and I'll keep writing here. How about that? So let's talk about spermatic ducts. So we saw with the testes, sperm is made in the tubules, the seminiferous tubules. From there, they go to the rete testis, and from there into efferent ductules. So let's talk about efferent ductules. Path of maturing spermatozoa. So in the seminiferous tubules, they're not quite complete. So they do have to go through some maturation. From the efferent tubules, no, not tubules, sorry, ductules. Efferent ductules, they're called. Because they're little ducts, little ductules. So they are ciliated. So the cilia help to sweep the sperm because they don't yet have the developed flagellum that they will need. So the cilia sweep the developing spermatids from the rete testis to the epididymis. And that's the site of sperm maturation. I'll show you what that's like later. And storage. And sperm are fertile for about 60 days. If not ejaculated by that time, they will be resorbed to the body. They will be degenerated and absorbed. The next structure of interest is the ductus deferens that through orgasm experiences peristalsis. So peristalsis during orgasm propels the sperm. And the last one is the ejaculatory duct. It's formed from the ductus deferens and the seminal vesicle. And the seminal vesicle will contribute some product to semen. And it empties into the urethra. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a moment to make sure everyone can write that down. Okay, going. We looked at that. We looked at the heat transfer, the duct system, the urethra. So the urethra is the final transport through the penis. And there are three regions, the prostatic, so that's close to the prostate gland, membranous, and the penile region. So I'd like to look at the accessory glands to the male reproductive system. So these are the glands that contribute various products. There are the seminal vesicles, posterior to the bladder, and they empty into the ejaculatory duct. There is the prostate gland that is below the bladder. It surrounds the urethra and ejaculatory duct. And there are the bulbourethral glands, used to be called Cowper's. Near the bulb of the penis, they empty into the penile urethra, and they contain some lubricating fluid for the sperm. The sperm have quite a long way to go. It's, about 30 centimeters, something like that. So the sperm needs to travel from the vagina to the distal end of the uterine tube, because that's where fertilization occurs. So it's actually a fairly long way. So they need to have, for that, some lubrication so that there's not a lot of friction. They require nutrition, so there's a lot of fructose for nutritive purposes. And also, they require a base to neutralize acid in the urethra. So the urethra for the male carries both urine and sperm. And so urine is acidic, and it's an acidic environment. So it must be neutralized, because an acidic environment is very difficult for sperm. And also the vagina is also acidic. So it's a double whammy for the sperm. So Okay, let me write a little bit about these accessory glands. Seminal vesicles. Well, they constitute a supply of about 60% of semen. So semen is the combination of fluids, um, chemicals, different kinds of chemicals, and water and sperm. The prostate gland has a kind of a thin, milky secretion. It contributes about 30% of semen. And the bulbourethral gland it just supplies a small amount of lubricating fluid. And it neutralizes acidity. Yeah, from residual acidity from urine. So there's about 2 to 5 mil of fluid expelled during orgasm. About 10% of that is sperm. So a normal sperm count is about 50 to 120 million per milliliter. So less than 25 million is associated with infertility. Not that many sperm will make it to the distal end of the uterine tube. So they have a lot of obstacles. For one thing, they have the acidity of the vagina. Then they have 2 uterine ducts that they could travel up, which only one of them will have the egg. So they also have to contend with other sperm. So there is actually something known as sperm competition. Sperm will secrete chemicals that will make it harder for other sperm to swim toward the egg. Yeah, there's also an interesting phenomenon called sperm cooperation. So with these small animals, I don't know if you've seen them. I have them, unfortunately, in my apartment. Most apartments do have them. They're called silverfish. They're tiny bugs. And their sperm get together in pairs so that when they're in pairs and both flagellae are moving, they're more likely to get to the egg first. It's a real race to get to the egg. And there's even a small animal called a water strider, I think, or a water bug. And its sperm form these like almost like a canoe. So several of them get together and they'll whip their flagellae so that they get to the sperm first. Yeah, sperm cooperation. Very interesting. I mean, in the end, of course, only one sperm will make it into the egg. So it's somewhat surprising that there is cooperation, but then the sperm they're all related. So perhaps that's why. So what are some other components of semen. Fructose. Fructose provides energy for the sperm. The sperm are highly motile. They have a fair distance to travel, so fructose is required for that. They include, interestingly, fibrinogen, which causes clotting. And there are enzymes that convert fibrinogen, a complicated thing, into fibrin, which adheres to the wall of the vagina for a short space of time, about 30 minutes. But there is another enzyme called fibrinolysin, which liquefies it. Within that 30 minutes. There are prostaglandins in semen. And their function is to cause the uterus to contract, and it's thought to help sperm propel toward the uterine duct. And the other product is called spermine. That's the base. So that's the base that will stabilize the sperm. Neutralizing the acidic environment of the urethra and the vagina. How are we doing for time? Not too bad. Yes, well, I think I will stop there. This has been loads of lecture, so let me stop there.